Welcome to the second episode of the Oh Shit Sherlock podcast. They say no shit Sherlock when it's obvious, but here we reveal the not so obvious. This is Oh Shit Sherlock, a sleuth podcast. I'm your host Joel Perlman, and together with my guests, we're going to uncover and explain how storytelling hides in plain sight in the brands that we love the most. Today we have a new guest with us, Nick Price, the operations manager at Sleuth. And today we're going to be talking about a South African brand that's given us a few laughs and giggles around the office that we feel like has some talking points about the narrative, whether good or bad. So Nick, today we're going to be talking about South Africa's proudly most South African lube. But get going onto the topic of Tolliebotter. Nick, introduce yourself to those that don't know you.
Hi there, I'm Nick. As Joel mentioned, I'm the operations manager here at Sleuth. Really excited to be here. Really excited to be chatting about a brand whose name certainly caught our eye. Copywriting straight out of the Nando's playbook. Really cool, and excited to slide right in.
Unfortunately, we didn't bring a sample product with us today like last week's episode, but we'll just have to make do. So for those that didn't catch that, we're going to be talking about a brand called Tolliebotter, South Africa's most South African lube being their positioning. It's quite an interesting one. I mean, the topic of sexuality and sexual wellness is so taboo, typically still culturally today. So to see a brand trying to tackle it with a good sense of humor and, at the very least, provide some laughs is quite an interesting way of approaching it. I'm trying to cast my mind back to when we first came across it, because I think it was you and I, not as weird as it sounds, and it was also in the office. Wasn't as weird a situation as it sounds, but I think you and I came across it somewhere. Just take me back to when you first encountered the brand, like your initial thoughts. I mean, other than the giggles.
No, 100%. There were definitely a few giggles, but we were actually scrolling through One Day Only.
Oh, yeah.
Looking back now, it's probably more appropriate for one night only.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, you're scrolling through and you see, you got some Havianas for sale. You have a Weber at 60% off, and then all of a sudden you've got Tolliebotter.
And a lifetime supply.
And a lot of Tolliebotter. And, all of a sudden the name catches you first. You don't often see brand names as bold as Tolliebotter. And really descriptive, but it does the trick.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it catches your eye and you have to click on it. It was almost compulsory. It felt like, this name, it has humor, it has culture. But almost instantly I knew it was lube.
Yeah.
So that was the first time we
it's
came
in the name. I'd be worried if it wasn't lube.
Wrong answers only.
Yeah.
That was the first time that we came across it, and then obviously you have to show it to the whole office, and I think that's probably where the marketing side of the name does quite well. If you just feel like you have to tell your friends that you have found this hilarious brand called Tolliebotter.
But you mentioned, in your intro, you spoke about the fact that you feel like they took something out of the Nando's playbook. What do you think they took out of the Nando's playbook? Because I've had a look researching for this episode. There's not a lot of marketing out there for the brand. It's kind of like the actual visual identity kind of speaks for itself. It's kind of all. If you haven't seen it, please go and have a look at it, or we'll put it up on the screen for you to see. It's hilarious. But they haven't necessarily taken that out of the playbook from Nando's from like a cheeky marketing standpoint.
Yeah.
They just applied it to their visual language, brand identity, and kind of like the name.
Yeah.
So what are the elements that kind of made it, for lack of a better word, let's say viral for you in the conversations that we had around it? Like what could have sort of caught your eye?
Yeah, I mean, look, the first thing which catches your eye, you click on the brand, you've gone past the name now you're having a look at the visuals. And I think the logo, we can't not talk about the logo. When you make a T and a B, and you take away the fill and you apply a stroke and place
no pun intended.
And you place it in a certain way. It can only be described as maybe a cucumber and two tomatoes.
Yeah, from a worm's eye view.
From a worm's eye view. And what do you mean by the worm's eye view is a very strategically placed trademark. And we've analyzed this logo, and it can only be from a bottom up perspective. So it's the wit, it's the cheek, it's the cultural sort of like how they always go back to local South African culture.
Yeah.
And look, you don't have to look much past the merch to be able to see that they're relying heavily on Afrikaans. And Afrikaans is a bit of an interesting one because of originally, and maybe even still today, is slightly conservative.
Yeah.
But they always have the best one-liners.
Yeah.
Everyone. And it's a cultural thing. And you go to a braai with an Afrikaans guy, you're gonna laugh. And then if you head into the FAQs, you can go and have a look at the FAQs, and it's like, even if it's a yes/no answer, they're answering with yebo, or shap, and something like that. And it's been described as keeping you wetter than an otter's pocket, and like there's some vulgarity that's left in there. But at the same time, everything that they do when they describe sort of what they do or answer questions, that area of vulgarity is you don't see it, but you know exactly what they're talking about. So they have a way of describing things with bananas and slippery, slidey ways that you're going to get the gist.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's PG.
Yeah. It's kind of like you speak about the PG side of things. I always remember like back when I was growing up, my dad used to buy a roll-on deodorant from a brand called French Connection UK, and their acronym is FC UK, and all of their branding is overtly FC UK. But it's a very intentional play on the words, and I remember it always being a talking point. I was like all of 6 years old, and I was like, oh, swear words, like curse words. It's like, oh my word, how's that a thing? And then I remember the first time I actually went to the UK and saw the brand, and I actually saw a store, and I like screamed it aloud, and my parents at like the grand age of 8 years old, and thought I was the funniest person in the world, because I was like, oh cool, I'm getting away with saying something vulgar, but I'm actually not being rude. So that was like the first thing that kind of cast to my mind from a brand perspective. And it's actually been quite a trend recently. If you look in some of the like other areas of the world, like Liquid Death water, like it's a water brand. Come on, like, so people are using the name, or using the name a little bit more strategically than maybe it was before. It's a really great way to like grab attention. And it's kind of like, I think for many people, it's like a once-off. It's like, okay, cool. The brand name's got me. It's funny, there I am. And I took another note down. Innocent Drinks is another one. Poopery. I don't know if you remember like that brand, like they make air freshener. Poopery. There's another one called Who Gives a Crap, which is an Australian toilet paper brand. Like
Naked Insurance.
Like, so there's so many of them that are kind of like using that as like a grab. And it's a stray away. And like we face this in our industry sometimes. So like we get approached by clients. They're like, okay, we need a brand name. And you like sit there racking your brain trying to work out like where this goes. And you try to look at things literally, you try to look at things metaphorically, you try to find things to latch onto, and you go like, who the hell came up with the name Apple? Like you're trying to find that next thing for you, and sometimes it's in the simplicity. I mean, like what is the direct Afrikaans translation? I suppose.
Oh, hey.
Tolliebotter. Forgive my Zimbabwean English here. I'm going to leave this one to Nick.
Not too sure how far I can go with. We said we're keeping this PG,
but I'm pretty sure it's exactly what it is. We can bleep it out.
Yeah, so Tolly would probably be it's a local local term for penis, and butter being butter. So basically, what it's going to be, coming across, it's going to be
penis butter.
You're going to be, your little item is going to be as slippery as butter.
We're probably going to have to bleep that part out. We're going to, like the elevator music playing in the background.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, like, it casts me to my next kind of question, which you and I are sitting here laughing about it now, but I mentioned it before. There is still some like social stigma around sexual wellness and stuff, particularly in a relatively conservative culture like South Africa. This brand doesn't necessarily translate very well in the rest of the world, right? And it comes across in their positioning. It is South Africa's most South African lube.
Yeah.
Probably not made locally, you never actually know, but the reality of it is just lies in the name. That's kind of like the whole positioning. But do you think that that's enough to kind of like break the stigma? Or what do you think the aim is? What do you think they're trying to do by bringing humor into light of this? Is it to break the stigma of like what society perceives of it?
Look, I think the stigma that's surrounding sexual wellness in South Africa is rife. It's there. It's almost frowned upon. Even if let's say if you walk into a Clicks or you walk into a disc game, okay, You can go off and buy your toothpaste with absolutely no problem. You're going to know that you're going to take a Colgate. Your Colgate's coming straight into your basket, and off you go. No one's going to look at you any differently because you're buying toothpaste. But let's just say now that I do want to go and have a look at the more sexual items that these pharmacies do stock. There's almost like this gray cloud of
People
judgment.
like cowering away.
Yeah, it's like, okay, let's say that I do want to go and have a look at the lubes, or I want to go have a look at the sex toys. You can't stand in front of that aisle or that section of the aisle for more than 5 seconds. Okay, you've basically done a quick scan to be like condoms, sex toys, lube, and you're already walking away. You've achieved absolutely nothing. And I think that there's that stigma, that taboo around even reaching out to go and grab it, even more so, paying for it at the till, being judged by the teller. And I think that is there. I think that it's strong, and I don't think that it's going to go away anytime soon. So what's your question about what are they doing and will it help is, I think, by doing the most South African thing ever and reverting to humor.
Yeah, making light of it.
Making it a little bit easier. It's almost comforting knowing that I can go and purchase a brand that is first funny.
Yeah.
And it's almost like
maybe good.
And maybe
yeah.
And I think it's sort of like a cultural permission slip.
Yeah.
To be like, you can try this. No one's gonna judge you. It's called Tolliebotter.
Yeah.
But if I go there and I stand with a Durex, for example, that's a sex item. That's now, it is going to be more attached.
It's a well-known brand.
It's a well-known brand. There's more attached to it. So I think, cultural permission slip, I think, is what they're probably going to go for.
The one thing that is quite interesting there is, you typically in retail in particular, you kind of have this perception that you have a moment to grab someone's attention. If you're in the coffee aisle, as an example, where all you're competing against this brand name and price, what is going to draw someone to your brand? I always remember this. When I was living in a digs, we all took turns on who bought coffee, because coffee was the most expensive commodity in the student digs.
And cheese, let's not forget cheese.
Yeah, but cheese, you go straight for the Parmalat, right, or the Clover. But in the coffee aisle, you got so many choices. And I remember I started buying Taboo coffee at that time, filter coffee. And the first thing I was like, ooh, colorful packaging. Now I'm not a connoisseur, not a coffee connoisseur. I love coffee and I drink a lot of it. And Turbidor's normal coffee might not be the best, if I'm honest, but chuck me a French vanilla or a hazelnut and something and some pretty packaging, and I'm happy to take that off the shelf and be the one that's take home. In the beer industry, is the same thing with the Devil's Peak stuff. The packaging leads the way.
Juicy Lucy.
Yeah, Juicy
Best
Lucy.
thing they ever did.
Yeah, and you've got this in retail. You've got a split second to grab someone's attention, right? And I'd say in the sexual wellness thing, you've probably got even less, because the stigma attached, staring at the aisle. Yep. What do I want? You kind of 5 seconds in, out. What do I know, or what grabs my attention?
Yeah.
And obviously, Durex has built an incredible brand around it themselves, and there's been others that have come, and we can talk about a couple of those too. But at that point in time, you're trying to assess what is going to be the best purchase decision for yourself as a consumer, and you don't have a lot of time. If we're being realistic, there's not a lot of different options to weigh up against. You're not trying to assess, your decision-making pattern is not, is this the best thing for me? Is the best product? What's the price? It's kind of get me in, get out. So that's the one side of it. And the second part of it is you mentioned that people are a little bit hesitant and nervous standing at the till. Maybe someone's judging me. Maybe the cashier is going, oh, this is weird. Why are you buying toothpaste and lubricant? What are you into, sort of thing. You always feel you have this cast of judgment. Yeah. So one of my questions for you is, for the most part, do you think in this space that consumers are actually looking for discretion in what they're buying, or boldness? And I think we live in a culture and society where people want to stand out, no doubt about it. We make purchasing decisions that make us stand out from the crowd, or at a material level and also from a psychological level. But is this an area where actually you want to blend in a little bit better? So it's one of those things. And I cast my mind back to, I can't remember when, but Durex also introduced their massage products, right? Different packaging, bigger, packaging it as a massage product primarily, probably removes a little bit of that stigma attached to it, even though everyone knows you're using it for the same purpose. Like, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
And I think from their perspective, that was more of a play of how do we bring some discretion into the purchasing behavior rather than the boldness, where Tolliebotter, you know, without going and plastering graphic images everywhere, have kind of like brought into play this bold identity for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's an interesting dynamic, and yeah, it's an interesting dynamic at play as to how you contrast those two as to, in terms of what people are really looking for.
Yeah.
But do you think it's making it more approachable though?
More approachable, yes.
Okay.
I think for South Africans, I think that's a
Yeah.
big thing that we need to need to say early. Is, and if we had to take that even further, probably the younger generation of South Africans. I don't think that it will necessarily resonate, and I could be completely wrong here, with the older generations. You know, they've grown up with the Durexes and the ones that if they have been using it, they're probably going to not stray from. And I don't think a funny name will get them to stray from. But if you're targeting the younger generation and almost looking to get in early with humor, with a bit of cultural background, with a bit of wit, and sort of being that level of, I don't know, comfort, or offering that level of comfort, I think that they are doing a decent enough job. I think something that's very important here when you talk about discretion is what e-commerce has done.
Yeah.
And, you know, retail in-store versus maybe a specialty sex store, online sex store. That's where that sort of discretion comes in. No one's going to know me if I buy a bottle of Tolliebotter.
Yeah.
You know, I'm pressing.
You're a number on the system, yeah.
So I think that's where I think that the gap between bold, catching eyes, and being able to have that sort of discretion around it, that no one knows me.
Well, I think, you know, part of this point is that at some point you want to build credibility into your brand from a product perspective, from like a messaging perspective, and from a positioning perspective, no doubt. And the humor in the name is carried through into the packaging and some of their marketing material. I mean, the merch is phenomenal. It's always a good laugh. I'm definitely buying the lads' custom apparel Tolliebotter golf shirts for the next golf tour. Absolutely no doubt about that. But you know, at some point, the trust and credibility of the product itself needs to take over.
Yep.
And one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot while researching this is, well, where, if you look at some of the comparative products, and I'm not talking about sexual wellness products, I'm talking about ones that have led with this idea of humor. What are some that kind of like have shown you that the product at least carries the weight? The humor and attention grabbing is like a flash in the pan. It's mimetic. It makes you want something at that point in time, and then it's done. Would you keep going back because of the name? You know, at some point you might buy it once, try it once. It's a novelty purchase, and then have a laugh, and then it's done. What's going to keep you going back? You know, like what is inherently in the product's going to keep you going back?
It's got to be the use case of a product.
Yeah.
And I think with a non-consumable, it's got to be that sort of, I don't want to call it scientific underpinning. But if we're talking about the lube industry now, I mean, it is stuff that's going to be on sensitive areas. It's, you know, it's going to be probably, you know, some sort of internal use, call it. So I need to know that that's safe. I need to know that other people have used it. I need to know that is not going to have negative side effects on me, because, you know, we're dealing with sensitive areas. So I think from that point of view, you know, that would keep me going back. Is it humorous?
Yeah. Does it do what it says?
But is it good?
Yeah.
Does it do what it says it does? And I think that, look, from a trust and an expansion point of view, where they're wanting to be seen and sold, is going to come down to that.
Yeah.
Look, great name, only so far. It can only get you so far.
Yeah.
Until, you know, people are going to want some more proof.
So for me, it kind of seems as though this is more of a go-to-market plan. Get the product out there using humor and using the ability to, you know, create this virality in the product to grab attention, go to market. And then one would hope that there's not a retreat back, but like a more strategic approach to how they maintain a brand positioning in the market.
Yeah.
because like the industry is huge, right? There's a massive opportunity. It's a huge industry, and we were talking about this just last week with some others, and the person that I was interacting with used to bring in pure lubricant into the country, was the licensed importer at the time. This was 15, 20 years ago sort of thing. And they use some wild viral marketing tactics in order to be able to capture market share from some really dominant players that are already there. Again, maximizing the fact that it was taboo and using taboo marketing campaigns in order to grab the attention. So this is something that's been around for a long time, but then you need to retreat back into your shell and like make sure that the product is good. That's what's going to keep people coming back. You referenced Nando's earlier. If Nando's marketing was hilarious, but the food was crap, I don't think anything's, if it gave everyone food poisoning, it doesn't matter how funny your marketing is, you're not going to go back. We watched that King Price the other day, right? Insurance is another segment that is so saturated, particularly in the South African market. And you're like, okay, well, you've done a phenomenal job in creating a humorous campaign that grabs someone's attention that might get them to purchase your product. Truth of the matter is that first claim comes. What happens? How does your brand interact with that and behave? You have to drop the humor. You have to like bring that level of credibility back into it. So it'll be interesting to see how that whole thing plays out over time. There's been a lot of novelty-esque brands that have come and gone, particularly in the South African market. And I think a lot of people try to capitalize on the fact that when there's a popular meme, it's very easy to jump onto that, make something of it, capitalize on it, and go. So there's been a lot of flash in the pan novelty brands. Let's be real and honest, that have come around. Some of the ones that have done really well, that have made pretty big waves and been able to keep sort of like their standards going, when I think of them, are things like sexy socks, where they use common things that are going on in the world to kind of like make light of it and make something of it. The sock industry, every retailer now has funky socks. So that kind of has faded. But how do you balance the humor with like the building of brand equity in terms of like an actual product that you've said carries some pretty serious connotations if things go wrong?
Yeah, I think, look, it's got to be careful, got to be slow, I would say. Let's just say that, okay, cool, we've caught the attention. We do have eyes on our product. We've got sales are going up. What's next? I think what's next is going to be quite important, both from a product perspective. Are they going to sell, call it 100
other sexual wellness products?
Yeah, are they going to go and explore what those look like? And then obviously the more products you add, the more testing needs to be done, the more the choices people have. So I think that it's going to be an interesting thing of what's next, if there's a what's next. We don't know. Is it just going to be a one bottle of lube with some with
funny names,
with a funny name and some funny FAQs, or is something going to come off the back of it? And you mentioned sexy socks. So one that came to my mind straight after that, which I think is doing quite well, would be kicks. So not necessarily humor attached to it, but practicality and color and fun, but with a great product. I'm pretty sure I'm wearing a pair of kicks right now. And
take your word for it.
Yeah. Should we check? Give it a go. Yep, they're the kicks. So why? Look, they took the bright, colorful, playful playbook from the sock brands, like your Versus, your sexy socks, and they were like, okay, well, let's put it on jocks. And it's something that might not be seen, but that doesn't stop lingerie from doing what they do, and women are always going to buy that. And that's what I really like about what they've done, is it is a good product.
Lead with the product.
So like, it's going to be funky, it's going to catch my attention, but you wear a pair of kicks and all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm probably going to need another pair of kicks. Especially for the sports people. So I think what they've done there in terms of what's going to keep people coming back is quality
of the product. So I mean, I want to speak a little bit about South Africa as a whole, because we've referenced a lot of South African brands and some foreign ones too. Do you think like the introduction of a brand like Tolliebotter, what do you think it says about the evolving sort of attitude of South Africans towards sex and sexual wellness and some of the more taboo topics that might exist sort of like culturally that we don't pay as much attention to, at least publicly, than we do, you know, in private and speak about in inner circles. Do you think it explains? Do you think there's a bit of a movement?
I think that there's a problem, and that is with the stigma that is attached to sex, sexual wellness, speaking about sex, or having any sort of, you know, sexual conversation, whether it's with your mates, your parents, your partner. But they're awkward. It's it's probably a little bit tricky to skirt the edges of some conversations. And I think from an industry perspective, the problem there would be that no one feels comfortable, or there's the problem of discomfort within it. So if they had to go about and say, okay, here's our problem, is that, you know, the lube industry is massive. I think it's probably what, 30, I think it's like $30 million a year.
I'm sure it's more than that.
That's
Probably with a B there rather than
billion,
an M.
sorry.
Yeah.
Fact check that.
Yeah.
And so they're going to go and they're going to say, okay, we've got this problem. The industry is big, but there's such a stigma attached to it that it may be affecting like how big it can.
Yeah.
And then to go culturally, yes, it's tough conversations.
Yeah.
So I think starting to build a foundation of comfort and permission, and it is fine to want to experiment. I think that is a good angle.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure if it's their angle.
Yeah.
But it is an angle, which I feel like from a product perspective within an industry like this is smooth.
Do you think that a brand can really make that much of a cultural shift at a cultural level rather than just at a consumption level?
I think it's a start, but I think communities will bring change. You mentioned the novelty gap, and I think that's where things like this in the past have proven to fall flat, where it is a one and done, and they say, you know, we're going to build communities, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and then all of a sudden, you know, no one finds a brand funny anymore. So I think that from a community perspective, a community attached to a brand. Look at the athletics brands in Cape Town, especially the running brands, your running late clubs, your Tuesday trails. There's communities around brands that have made change. Communities around brands that have made a difference. And I think that, you know, we know those ones well. We know what they're trying to solve. We know what they're doing. I don't think that the everyday Joe knows enough about the stigma attached to sexual wellness within South Africa.
Well, that brings me perfectly to my sort of like next question that I actually had for you here, is that if you're just chasing meme culture within this, right? And when I'm talking about memes, I'm not talking about like what we know from social media. I'm talking about memes that socially exist in human nature. That's obviously a risk, okay? And at the end of the day, science needs to lead story in this particular product segment, okay? And it's all fair and well where the stakes are a little bit lower to have a laugh. Not much can go wrong with a funny pair of socks, right? Or to a certain extent, a pair of underwear, or, you know, a lot of these other places, water is a pretty good example, like Liquid Death water. Not much can go wrong from that standpoint. Well, I suppose it could, but science needs to lead story here. So you're balancing, your scales are tipping either one way or the other in terms of trying to determine what can be funny versus what has to be, you know, serious. And I think it's a big risk, particularly for a smaller local brand. But the bigger guys can't do that.
Yeah.
And if they haven't done it already, I remember a campaign run by Durex. I think it was in the 2016, 2017. I don't know if you guys remember. It was called Funderwear. They released like Funderwear, which was underwear with human touch sensors built into it that you could gift a long distance partner. It's and I encourage you to go watch the ads. Like they did a campaign around it, and it was pretty hilarious. Pretty risque, but pretty hilarious. We had a conference last weekend that actually showed it. But, you know, they've found different ways to evolve it, but stick to the core of like, we make a good product. The proof is obviously in the pudding, and there's only so far that you can take humor before you need to kind of, you know, dig your stake in the ground. So I think the community side of things is a huge aspect. South Africans in particular are very, you know, community centric. That's a big part of our culture. And And for a brand, that's good to stick to your knitting in one market. Like I said, it's not going to explode worldwide, right? It doesn't translate in the same way. I don't know what the German translation is, or the Icelandic translation probably. And we've seen brands that have failed terribly when it comes to like crossing borders and crossing language barriers.
Lost in translation.
There's some horror stories about that. So in this case, the story matters in terms of building the brand identity, but does it carry into building a product? And this is a big thing where, from my perspective, in narrative, we like narrative to lead the direction that brands take as a whole. And that often goes into product too. And it's quite difficult when you've only built off the back of humor and let's just call it humor for now. You have to find that different angle to build community and like this cultural zeitgeist and a movement. Some of the smaller, well, not smaller, some of the less, let's call it on the nose ones that come to mind for me is like Ben and Jerry's and the way they name their ice creams, right? There's always some pretty funny, like not overtly sexual or crude or anything like that, but just something that grabs your attention. So, it'll be interesting to see where Tolliebotter goes in the future and where they take that, because it is really hard to kind of build that out over a long term.
Yeah.
So I did this exercise in the last episode, actually, where we just kind of with old school and we're like, okay, what are some of the other South African brands that we can go and say a collaboration makes sense, right? So from my perspective now, like what are some of the other industry segments, products that, maybe have the same stigmas attached to them. Similarly, there's consequence to things going wrong from a product level. But using humor to leverage, like enter a market works. So, I would throw straight off the bat here, there's probably a big market in terms of smoking products and tobacco products and things like that, moving away from tobacco and more into smoking segments, alcohol brands. There was, who are we talking about?
Even automotive, I think people have tried. I mean, like, even if you had to go and look at some of the wheelie, the We Buy Cars, all of those jingles.
Cars.co's a jingle.
Cars.co's a jingle. All of it is approaching with humor. And
the We Buy Cars one's a perfect example, actually. There are numerous jingles.
Yeah, numerous jingles. The adverts are funny. And again, when we look at sort of like playbook stuff, it's like the South African culture is always embedded.
Yeah.
Always embedded, because we have to catch attention and we have to laugh in order for us to remember something. So I think from that point of view, automotive can probably take something out. A little bit tricky. I mean, you're still selling something that's a hell of a lot more expensive than 160 Rand type of lube.
Yeah. Did your research on the price there, huh?
Just in case.
I think the thing that interests me is that this is a brand that is selling a story, right? They are selling an identity behind something that is funny and humorous, which from my perspective, for a narrative base is great. That's the sort of thing that I want to see. I don't know whether it's the perfect story, and time will tell. I think it's a super saturated industry, hard to break into, but I know that we encountered this for the first time 6 months ago. We talk about it all the time and have a laugh about it. Yeah. I don't know if anyone around us has bought the product yet. Actually, if I'm being honest, I don't think anyone has. Nor would they probably be sharing it at the office. But
again, taboo though. Why not?
No, I know, I get it. Maybe not at work.
No. It's gonna have to write you up.
Yeah, maybe not at work, but we don't know. But we've spoken about it a lot.
Yeah.
And I can promise you right now, any upticks that you see on the Google Analytics back on that site is probably us talking about it and going and having a laugh and showing someone the merch and going, check out the logo, just have a giggle at this. And I hope it doesn't fade into like meme culture and just this hot box of, okay, this product, fell off the face of the earth pretty quickly. Yeah. We laughed about it and then we never heard from it again.
Fall into the novelty trap.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of places where you can buy cheap gifts, and that you'll have a laugh at and you'll give someone for a bachelor's party and you'll have a laugh. You don't want it to fall into that category.
No.
And that's the risk, right? Yeah. It would make a great stocking stuffer on Christmas Day, but you don't want it to just be that, right? Yeah. You want people to be repeatedly purchasing it because it's a good product. It tells a good story and it's what people want.
I think that's where the what next and the scientific underpinning is going to be quite important. I think also we have to sort of maybe throw a few assumptions in the ring here of where do they want to be.
Yeah.
Are they going to be speciality online?
Yeah.
Or do they do they want to
Be full
stocked?
retail, yeah.
Do they want to go full retail? Because then the science and the facts behind the product are the only thing that's going to get them. I say the only thing, are probably the only thing that's going to get them onto the shelf.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and I think, you know, we can start wrapping this up here, because one of the big insights that's come out of this for me is that in an industry where stigma is so closely attached to it, story is part of the product, but it's going to lead the ideology behind it.
Yeah.
The balancing act is always going to be, what do you do with the actual scientific base of it, particularly when there's something riding on the quality of the product, as there is in this case. So to the Tolliebotter team, great job. The brand is amazing. The name is a laugh. The merch is cool. Haven't tried the product, but more than willing to think it's a hoot. And yeah, just love the fact that you guys are taking on an industry and taking on a challenge that is pretty, you know, much embedded. There's some dominant players and nobody really strays away from that. And I think from a South African standpoint, seeing someone trying to do that locally and do that in a way that gathers the attention and the minds of, and hearts and souls of us South Africans is a great way to go. So keep going. We hope to see the products on more shelves in the future. I do, at least. And really keen to see where the brand goes.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Joel.
Good to have you. Good chat. Good laugh.
Good to be here.
Yeah. And now we can slide right out.
Sliding on out.